Hi, I'm Eric Skeldon. You're listening to the Head Smack podcast.
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack podcast. My name is Paul Pavolny, and you are listening to Conversations with Misfits. And today's misfit is Eric Skeldon. So good to have you on, man. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks, Paul, for having me. We've been connecting and talking about superheroes, movies, and stuff for a while, and so I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, thanks, man. Eric is a kingdom entrepreneur pioneering in technology and media. He's also helping Christian investors multiply their wealth with cash flowing, boring businesses. So, Eric, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know we've been connected for a while. We've engaged with each other's content, and you're doing some amazing things. But before we talk about what you're doing now, let's talk about a little bit about your origin story. Where did young Eric start from?
Yeah, so I really started as a misfit kid. I'm a middle child. Grew up, C student, ADHD, labeled dyslexic, ADD, ADHD, going to summer school for math and elementary, really seeing like why I was struggling to get these basic math concepts that everyone else was able to seemingly to understand. Grew up in the Dallas Fort Worth area, a city called Lewisville, Texas, and kind of just always felt like I was a little bit different, and like
Yeah.
I didn't really just fit into the crowd. So I kind of from a young age really started wanting to almost be like a class clown or just a comedian or just whatever. Like I knew I could make people laugh. I knew I could just I like talking all the time. So and then I was the kid that was just daydreaming. So in elementary, middle school, I'm thinking about flying cars. I'm thinking about like movies and what would it be like if we just everyone just broke the rules and we all just ran away and did whatever, just did fun stuff. And like I don't know, I'd always think about like what everyone was doing, and I was always thinking about what would happen if we all just did the opposite and like
Yeah.
not followed everything we were taught to do. And so I was just always dreaming about like I don't know, like just doing crazy stuff. And so I think I did like English and like history and loved just some different things, but science and math kind of struggle with, as many
Yeah.
of you guys probably could relate to. And really for entrepreneurship, really found my gift for entrepreneurship in middle school. And I got called into the principal's office. And then my mom got called by the principal because I was getting bulk candy from Sam's Club. You can get like 40 pieces. I don't know, 50 cents per unit, and then I selling them for
Yeah.
$1. So, was this
Wow.
basically flipping this candy business, bulk candy from Sam's Club. And it's
Where'd you
funny
get
because
that
later
idea
on,
from? Where'd you get that idea from?
just knowing that, because at the school, I knew how much we would pay and my friends would all pay. Like I had this Asian friend, Jack, who they had this Asian restaurant down the street that had amazing food. And his parents, because they were entrepreneur and he helped the business, he always had money. So this dude would be loaded and always buy us. He was like kind of our like rich friend that would always buy us like honey buns and buy us candy bars at lunch. My dad was from South Africa, so frugal. My dad would never give it. Like he even at if we would go to McDonald's, he would only let us spend $3.24. We couldn't get a Big Mac meal. We couldn't get any of the ones through sevens. You can only get $3 menu items. And so
Yeah.
my dad at lunch, like you can't get extra things. You can't get
Yeah.
those extra candy bars or whatever. So I knew that that's what the rich kids wanted. They always got the honey buns, the extra, like they basically would order your lunch at school, but then the extra food were like, it's like in ClickFunnels or whatever. It's like the upsells, right? You have your lunch and then the upsells are all these extra cool things. And I was
Right.
like,
Right.
man, that's where the money goes. It's all those upsells. And I was like, I want to have my own vendor machine to be able to also throughout the, not just during the lunch period, throughout classes, I could be like, hey, I have what those people have too. And
Yeah.
so that's where I saw that all my friends would spend money on that, on all these extra items, miscellaneous items. And so it was like, I could do that too. Cause I went to Sam's Club, cause I saw the prices of what they had. It was like $2, $3 for this stuff, $1.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I can get these, 40 pieces for 50 cents in bulk at Sam's Club. And I was like, then I can, basically arbitrage. And so that was kind of, hustling back then, was kind of where I, because we never had extra money. Like
Yeah.
my dad was just very frugal, and so he actually worked as an accountant and for like J.P. Morgan, like in Chase, and so he worked for these big places that had managing and counting beans, millions of dollars, and even work for big pharmacy companies out there. But I think he just the mindset he got from South Africa was very just like you need to
Right.
save everything, and you need you
Right.
always save and hoard everything. And
So he was
um,
a first generation immigrant into the United States.
yeah, he came
Yeah.
out here,
Yeah.
tennis scholarship, 18 years old. So yeah, just that was really my upbringing was just like very just like you have to figure out you have to be resourceful to figure out what you're gonna
Yeah.
get and what you're gonna
Yeah.
do. My dad was like, when you go to college, you need to get an athletic scholarship or you need to get military to pay for your school or whatever. So in my head, I'm like, I ended up doing both those things. I ended up getting really good
Oh,
at a
wow.
sport. Basketball was my first like thing. I spent my 10,000 hours, as Malcolm Gladwell says, like you need to put in the time.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to the NBA. I'm 6 foot tall, so I just had a really good 3 point shot. And in college, I was actually able to dunk, but never in high school. But yeah, I wanted to go to the NBA, but I was in the Dallas Fort Worth area. I mean, there's just the best talent in the world. So people are
Yeah. Yeah.
6'5", 6'6", like they're just
So you
dunking
were the
over
shorty.
everyone.
Yeah.
They could do 3 points and dunk over everyone, and I'm just like, I was not. I was good, but for some reason I still struggle with, also like with I saw that looking back, I really noticed I had a lot of still fear and insecurities because I was really good, but when like I would get under the spot and under whatever, like a coach or someone was like watching me or during the games, I would not
Yeah.
perform as well than as when I was like playing around. And like how they say like when you're in your like like almost like your chi or your, what do they call it, the flow, like when you're in the
The
flow
zone.
state,
Yeah.
you're in the zone. You're just you're playing as good as you could play. You're shooting how you could shoot. But I would get so nervous, and during games and stuff, whenever I knew that it mattered, like I would just kind of freak out, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
play
Stage
like I was in
fright.
the
Yeah.
zone. I would get
Yeah.
almost like stage fright. So I knew that there was like some fear too, because I'd play really good the rest of the time, except like when it seemed like, when it really mattered sometimes. In some games I would get out of it, but a lot of games and a lot of times, even when my coach was watching and stuff, I wouldn't always play as good as I could. But so that's something, looking back, I really noticed that even hindered me in basketball, because there was a lot of fear that I hadn't dealt with and I didn't know that I had, because we didn't have spiritual people back then. Like we were in mega churches and stuff, but there was no like sozo and like dealing with your roots and dealing with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stuff back then. So that was
Yeah.
the other piece, is I worked in like mega churches and stuff, and my mom was always working at a church, taking us to churches. So that was kind of my stuff, is big Texas, big churches, big 5A schools, and just that was kind of
And
my
so you
upbringing.
mentioned that military was the other option. So you spent some time in the military.
Yeah, so going into college, before I joined the military, I went on a cheerleading scholarship. So my senior year, I got into cheerleading, and we won state that year for Louisville, Texas, co-ed. So it's like one of the only schools that they basically have always 10 10 male, 10 female, and they're just a really good co-ed, like powerhouse school at flips and stunts, where you're doing all the like throwing the girls up and catching them. And
Right. Right.
it's like a really athletic school. And so I got into that. And then the good thing about, if you're watching, the good thing about male cheerleading that people don't know is there's not that, well, some people know this, but there's not as much male competition, at least for like
Yeah.
the strong guys that could lift the girls and do flips. So
Yeah.
there's not that much competition. So the spots to get scholarships, there's only so many scholarships out there with any sport. But of course, basketball, baseball, some of those sports are really like, there's just a lot of competition around the
Right.
country.
Right.
Whereas cheerleading, there wasn't as much competition. So I got a full ride scholarship to Weatherford College, and we ended up got third in the nation that first year. I was competing with them, and just I got really good because I was already good at. I was always kind of like an acrobat. I always do flips and just like do crazy stunts. And
Right.
so going into cheerleading, they saw a natural gift for me to do flips and stunts, and so I just put in a lot, 2 a days pretty much, and started getting really good. And then so I got a scholarship in that, and that's when I got introduced to my next pretty much entrepreneurship business, which
Yeah.
ended up being pretty much helping. The problem was we would do our 2 days in college and school, cheer practice, and then like cheer practice sometimes at night, many times of the week. But then afterward, we wanted to relax and we wanted to like have a beer. You're
Right.
18, 19, 20 in college, so I was 18. All of our teammates, we would have a beer and they would smoke weed, and so that was just what they did in Texas in college, and so most colleges, and at least the party kids, and so with that, they were like, it was out in the country in the city called Weatherford, so they didn't have premium, good quality marijuana. And so in Dallas, I was like, hey, my connections in Dallas, they have that. So same thing as the Sam's Club thing and buying in bulk. I bought an ounce in bulk and just to serve my teammates and then help them out because they were like, they're always telling us, man, I wish we could get good stuff, but you can never get it out there. And they can
Yeah.
never get the supply. So I would always look at supply and demand or problems. So I was like, oh, I could solve that for them. And I just try to solve the problem. Next thing I know, this ounce that I started with they keep buying it from me. And the next thing I know, I'm the dealer for the whole community college. And then I'm like making tens of thousands of dollars and like have $10,000 in a safe. I ended up getting jacked multiple times, go through a lot of just crazy stuff. Like, because I was trying to be the nice guy that's now making all this money, helping serving all these people, but I'm getting jacked. I'm getting next connected. So my guy that starts basically driving all the way out to me from the Dallas Fort Worth area, dropping off 1 pound, 2 pounds of marijuana, and these are like vacuum sealed pounds with like they smell like coffee because they came across the border, vacuum sealed. So it was just a crazy life I was living at 18, 19, and I was like, and I knew that I just knew that I was starting to like follow this bad path, and that was because I ended up like flunking out of school. My mom, I was having issues with my mom. People were jacking me all the time, trying to steal the money, steal the marijuana and stuff, and like breaking our house. And like I was like, man, this isn't even though I'm making money. And because at the time I was watching movies, I always got inspired through movies. So at the time I was watching movies like Dazed and Confused with Matthew McConaughey, or Blow with Johnny Depp. Blow with Johnny Depp. Just these movies like that. Scarface, of course, with Scarface didn't end well. Johnny Depp's story and Blow didn't end well. So I kept looking at the end of the story. I was like, okay. I was like, if I'm 18, 19 right now, and people keep jacking me, and people keep, just like, I'm either gonna also it's a felony if you have over, I think, 2 ounces. So I was like, so there was I wrote it in my book called The Kingdom Mind, but God really encountered me in really some unique ways through that, and like got me out of a lot of stuff. I never got in any trouble. And basically after 2 years, I just gave it up. God like encountered me, but also a movie really encountered me called Father of Lights. And it really showed some of the people who, a lot of them become friends now, but they were really generals in the faith doing what Jesus did all over the earth. And I really went, because I was seeking spirituality, but I wasn't able to find it. I was just, because I was at 18, I was off on my own for the first time. So I felt like my dad, his dad sent him out here from South Africa and just was like, you're on your own now, go make it, figure it out. And I thought I was the same thing for me. I was like, I got to figure out my life, like how to provide for myself. And so I didn't know about, I knew big religion, but I never knew Christianity, but I never knew a real relationship with God where I was speaking to him, hearing from him. And so that was during that time where I was seeking God, and he met me like on LSD, shrooms, acid, ecstasy. Like I was chasing a lot of this stuff to like try to seek, a spiritual connection. And he would even meet me on those things. And it was just really cool to see. But that movie really changed my life. And shortly after, my wife ended up coming back in my life. My wife was, at the time, was actually radical story too, coming out of rave clubs and stuff. But she came out of there at 17, and she was in my mom's Bible study. So when she got back in my life 5 years previously, she was like already coming to my mom's Bible studies and stuff. And so we already kind of were in each other's sphere. And then she reached out to me after I changed my life. I ended up actually even going to work at Olive Garden and stuff for a year. And then I went back to college for a year, and then I enlisted in the Texas Army National Guard, which is basically, I did airborne infantry as my like job. And so I basically had 8 months. I had to do active duty. And then after the 8 months, I was doing once a month. So you could work a civilian job.
Clean?
Do what?
At that point, you were clean. You had cleaned up at that point.
Yeah. So when I enlisted, I did a year at Olive Garden, and then I went back and did a year clean at the college, almost to redeem myself. I feel like God was like, finished, because I let my team down, that cheerleading team that we won third in the nation. I let them down by doing, trying to being so focused on making money and, being in an industry that wasn't helping my teammates and stuff. I mean, of course they still partied and smoke even when I came back, but at least like I wasn't having anything to do with that. When I came back, I was more just trying to be a better leader, better teammate. And so we came back, we won third in the nation again. It's funny, if you go on Netflix, there's a series called Cheer, which you'll see the
Uh-huh.
person who beat us every time, Navarro. But it's like it went super viral, Cheer on Netflix. But you'll see the kind of world we were in. But we would
Right.
win third against them. And I'm friends with a lot of the people from like the coaches and stuff. But anyways, yeah, I went back a year clean in Olive Garden working, a year going back to cheer, and then just working a normal job, trying to coaching like gymnastics and stuff to help pay while I was in college, and then
So with the entrepreneurship,
yeah.
you went from the middle school entrepreneur selling candy to the college entrepreneur selling drugs. Was there, in that between those two things, was there still that entrepreneurial thing that continued in you, or was that pretty much the highlights of kind of that era of your life?
Yeah, no, actually, let me think. Yeah, at Olive Garden, I started up picking up my camera, my DSLR camera. Actually, during this goes into my film world. Is if you look at my YouTube, I have like 6,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, and it's from back then too. I left a lot of my main videos from Cheer, but because I always wanted to go back and be like, whatever I do with my content, I wanted to go back. Some of the bad videos that I did that were real worldly, I did delete a lot of those. So there's a lot of deleted content, but they're the main ones that aren't super bad, or like just whatever, where I could just say like, hey, this was me, this is part of my testimony. They're still on my YouTube from 10, 11 years ago. Anyways, but during that time, I picked up a T3i Rebel. I bought it at Best Buy, this DSLR camera. And
Yeah.
even during high school, I picked up my mom's camera because she did photography for our high school for football and basketball. So I'd pick up her camera and I started doing videos on a DSLR camera back in 2009, 2008. And then so in college, I was also making videos. So I made videos of us flying, of us doing like the stunt. They call something called Stunt Fest. It's the best stunters in the world. So that's where
Wow.
I didn't
Yeah.
get paid for it, but I started getting my skills for making and editing videos. So I mean, some of my cheer videos have 100,000 views and hundreds of comments. And so like I started seeing that I can make good videos and like I can capture content traveling, us going from, the preparing for this, event to go to compete third in the nation. And,
Where did that
anyways,
interest for video come from? Was this from, something that you learned, from something that you
it
watched,
was
like
just from
read?
my mom because my mom was getting paid to do it. And so I was like, and then I think movies too. Like like I said, I was just always a movie buff. And like,
Yeah.
I just, my whole, like even today, like my free time, I just spend watching movies and I speak to God through movies or I'm like, God, can you show me something? Holy Spirit, show me something through this movie.
Yeah.
Like a lesson, whether it's from Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, something about bravery, honor, integrity, anything I could learn about character and values and like making good decisions or bad decisions. And movies and video games, I always love like the idea of role playing and what decisions you make, because every decision you make will either lead you in the kingdom of heaven, kingdom of darkness, like it'll either be good or bad. So that's why I always love movies and video games. But so yeah, when my mom started getting paid for it, I was like, okay, other people get paid to do this. Like, high schools need it, movies need it.
Right.
So I knew it was a skill that whether you were in movies or you're just doing weddings, because my mom was always doing weddings and senior photos. And I was like, Mom, you have this amazing camera, but it has a video feature. You never use the video feature. My mom only did the photography feature. So I was
Yeah.
like, Mom, you're missing out on all this like videography. So I started maybe just thinking like I'll learn video and maybe that will be a skill I can, do. So that was kind of just in my head. And, I knew you can get paid for it. And then because there was other videographers at the weddings, there was always, I knew that you can do video. And at the time, 11 years ago, video was just on YouTube. Everything was just becoming more video. And like some of my friends in that, would also just start doing these videos and making money. And then I actually got during that year at Olive Garden, I started getting in the rap scene with rappers like 2 Chainz, The Weeknd. I started doing it like House of Blues and filming like behind the scenes for these.
Yeah.
I got
Wow.
connected. One of my other servers was connected to the rap scene. He's like, hey, you're a videographer. Come with me. Let's do this. But I also saw God almost like put your camera down, because in that scene, it was like, there was just a lot of also back in that environment of drugs and
Right.
clubs
Right.
and
Right.
like, I didn't want to be filming and in that scene, and I wasn't really making that much money. I was just like, but I saw I could have started making money getting connected to these rappers and making music videos. And even some of the Dallas rappers, some of my rappers that I grew up loving, I got to do like behind the scenes of their music videos. So in a way it seemed like attractive, but that was like Satan's pull to be like, hey, come do the rap scene and come be like,
Right.
because in that world I would have just went down a bad path. And that's why
Yeah.
I just even stopped doing that. But that's where my entrepreneurship was always kind of I was always looking at things I could do even while I was working at Olive Garden or anywhere.
Right. Well, and it seems like you've always had a knack for, spotting what others are doing and making money from, and finding a way that your skill set can work towards doing the same thing. And so,
Mm.
um, you know, so now now you've picked up the camera. Now you're starting to do video. Um, when did you actually start making money with it? Was that your next job, your next entrepreneurial pursuit? Like, what was the next thing after you discovered that you liked the camera in your hand?
Yeah, so it's funny. I always say it took like 10 years. It was almost like 10 years of me putting down my camera. So through that journey of putting down the camera in the rap industry and then going into the army. So 8 months of the army kind of changed my life. I also
Yeah,
got married in the middle of that. So our first break after, they call it just the first initial part of basic training, which was like 3 months long. My wife and I wrote letters. We got married outside of Fort Benning infantry base. We had a 3 day break. Then I went to airborne school, and then the after it's like called like basically your job training, infantry advanced training or whatever. But completed that, got my wings, went to airborne school, got back in December of 2013, and then I enrolled that January into University of North Texas to business school. So I already pretty much finished almost 2 years. I was just the math credit shy of my 2 year associate degree. So I enrolled at University of North Texas. I got exempt from the math classes that I failed. I actually failed 3 math classes, and but they were even remedial math, so I never did my
yeah,
SAT or ACTs. So when I went and tested, they just tested me for remedial math. So there's like 3 math classes I had to pass to even get to the normal credit that actually counts towards your math credit. So I even hated the college school system because of that, because they were making you do these remedial classes that didn't even count towards a credit. So in my
yeah,
head, I was like, that's just stupid. That's a waste of time. So I would never even put enough energy to pass those classes. So anyways, I passed everything but math. And then I ended up getting exempt from remedial math for being in the Army. Shout out to the U.S. government and the Army. So I got exempt, so I went straight into business math, and I passed it the first try. I got with prior service buddies that were smarter than me, and that was what I learned: to get around people who are smarter than you and like
yeah,
work with them. I ended up passing
yeah.
business math, and then from there, I got to do the classes I loved: entrepreneurship, startups, international marketing, how to raise money
Right.
for nonprofits, and so I did a business degree with kind of a minor in marketing, and it was also a mix of like even public affairs and community service and like nonprofit. So I knew I wanted to do business and nonprofit type stuff. At the time, my older brother was going to seminary and he was doing a nonprofit. So I was seeing the impact he was doing. I was like, man, like I want to do more of that, like where
Yeah.
you use your skill sets to do like impact type work, nonprofit type work, and
So did you see your ADD as a superpower or as kryptonite?
I mean, it could be both. I mean, you can get so distracted that you're smoking weed, you're doing pills, you're doing crazy stuff, you're hooked on all this stuff, and you're so distracted that you're not effective. Which was a big part of my life, was doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But then I did learn how to turn it into my superpower and how to use it for like extreme focus and just to be extremely like almost be like a Steve Jobs or like Richard Branson. Richard Branson has, he has an airline company, he has a galactic, space company. He has
Right.
train companies on all these things. And so that's how my brain thinks too, is like, I think big and like, oh, we can have this company, we can have this company. And so now we have that, not at the level of Richard Branson, but we have that. So yeah, I think you have to turn it into your superpower. And I think that's what excites me about Misfits, and just using your story for, I'm 32 years old this month. In 2 weeks, I'll be 33. And the fact that you can, in your 20s, try different things, try
Right.
film, try rap industry, try working at Olive Garden, try the military, go to business school. It took me 3 years to finish that business school, graduated in 2016. And then I went into sales. And in sales, I declared that I was going to be a multi-million-dollar salesperson before anyone ever hired me. I just kept declaring it and I wrote it down. And even through that, I did some entrepreneurship with Lyft. I ended up becoming a Lyft ambassador. They paid me. Lyft, which is now a $1 billion tech company. At the time, they were launching in Dallas while I was in business school, and I saw the power of Lyft and Uber. I knew it was going to change the world back in 2015,
Yeah.
2014, and I ended up becoming an ambassador and helping them launch into Dallas. They paid me $20 per user I could attract and get to use my code. So I had the codes. This showed my like affiliate marketing game back then. I had the codes Dallas Mavs, I think it was Cowboys, and Bar Perks. So all the sports teams, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Cowboys, Bar Perks. My code was Bar Perks. My code was Hotel Perks. So I would
Yeah.
get these holders. I'd buy the holders in bulk, and I'd print the cards in bulk with my code on it, and they let me give away $50 in free ride credits. So I had a perfect offer. I can give away hotels, bars, and sports fans $50 in free ride credits, so they don't have to drink and drive. They can park 2 miles away from the stadium, and they can get a free ride to the stadium. And so I was providing something free with Lyft. I ended up getting thousands of people to get that, and I
Wow.
made like while I was in business school, I made a really good income driving people around, like business people to airports and stuff. And then also, they even gave me a car, like where I paid for my car note to drive Lyft, and I referred thousands of people making. But they ended
Wow.
up starting to screw us. They gave us $20, then they gave us $10, then they gave us $5 per person. So my
Yeah.
income I was making at $20 was good, but then once it moved it to $5, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But anyways, after getting a business degree, that experience landed me a software sales job, because I was
Yeah.
able to show them what I was able to do just on my own initiative, no incentive, no base salary. And so I landed a $40,000 base salary software sales job with uncapped commission, and really did well in that in Dallas. And then went into freight brokering. And this was the cool thing about what God will use if you focus, like you just said, use your ADD for superpower, or even use your superpowers for God instead of the enemy. And then after that software sales job, I started doing well after college. I ended up going into freight brokering, and I ended up doing millions in revenue within 12 months, landing huge multi-million-dollar contracts with
Wow.
shippers, and we were doing over 100 loads a month. And I was just connecting, almost like the cartel, connecting all these lanes and shipments all over the country. But they're my contracts I landed with my clients, and then I'm giving them to the truckers, and the truckers are doing hundreds of loads. I'm doing it all from an office, from my cell phone, or from my email, and I ended up making $250,000 for the first time, just doing the same skills I was doing moving the marijuana, except I was moving furniture. I was moving 48,000 pounds of lumber,
Yeah.
40,000 pounds of
Yeah.
steel, of all that stuff. So it was the same skill set to make six figures doing it legally with the freight industry, as the enemy was trying to get me to use moving weight, for cartels and stuff.
Right. So when did, that, of course, that you moved on from that into what you're doing now when it comes to movies and things like that, and entrepreneurship and crowdfunding and things like that. So talk to me about, when did that transition happen, and how did, what was it like to start off with, and where are you at now with it?
Yeah. So after the freight industry left, that was corporate America pretty much left in 2019. Um, and it's a whole story on how I didn't even want to leave that industry. When my fourth daughter was born, I pretty much had to, like, I was almost, yeah, pretty much fired. And because I had a kids, and I was like asking to work remote, the whole thing, I was in FMLA, ended up getting fired. Long story short, and maybe even, it's crazy because Pedro Adeo and 100X.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was making six figures in corporate America, and I just paid Pedro like a couple grand to get in his programs and to go to
Yeah.
his first his 2019 event. And while I was making six figures, anyways, long story short, I invested in Pedro, and then I invested in his $10,000 expansion program back in 2019, because I was already seeing that I could do more, and like I was a six figure like salesman type guy, and could build this book of business, land these big contracts. So I was like, I know I could do more. And anyways, I ended up getting into Pedro's programs and going to his first conference, where I got to give it up for that. Like, learning that more kingdom thinking of entrepreneurship was what saved me, honestly, when I got fired from corporate America. So when I pretty much got my book of business taken, I got into that world. So I went all in on kingdom entrepreneurship, because I'm like, this is what I'm invested in. This is my mentorship. This is like
Yeah.
my, online education and my tribe. So I went all in, and I just started just like going live every day, that's when I launched my first podcast, Kingdom Passive Income. I was studying passive income, affiliate marketing. So that same skill set I had for affiliate marketing, I started doing affiliate marketing. I started doing, I got into real estate. So I did 20 real estate deals. And kind of like the affiliate marketing, I did wholesaling, where you get a property under contract and then you assign it to an investor. So I helped the investors find the properties, and I got 5, 10, up to $17,000 fees for doing that. And so I was really just using my same skills in Pedro's world. I sold like $20,000 of Pedro stuff, and made 40% commission. So I was just doing what I had with what I had in my hands, and I was just
Right.
making money, serving people, serving other leaders, and doing some real estate deals while I was learning kingdom entrepreneurship. And so I was all in on kingdom entrepreneurship.
So what does
Dr. Mel's
kingdom
movie.
entrepreneurship mean for for some people that could be a new term that they've never heard before, or maybe they've seen it but they've never really understood what that means. What does kingdom entrepreneurship mean?
Yeah, and it's kind of, I feel like it's changed a little bit for me, but right now my definition is really thinking about the king and his kingdom, and then think about this government. So if you think about the kingdom of heaven and his government, and think about us all as stewards and managers of this kingdom, all the resources on the earth are God's, and as kingdom entrepreneurs, we have management contracts with our time, our resources, our talent. So if I have a business, let's say I have a landscaping business, I'm a manager of this landscaping business that is to steward the people, the team, the customers, and stuff for the best use of what would impact the kingdom of God, and like represent the kingdom of God well. So it's really just manage. It's really just a management. It's being a good manager of your money, of your team, of your time, and stewarding it well to create good in the society. Like, so your staff is like, man, like, I'm proud to work at this company. This company's impacting people. People are getting discipled within this company. They're loving Jesus more. Their families are getting better. Their marriages are getting better. So it's really just being good managers at the end of the day of all
Yeah.
this resource on the earth that are God's. And and it was hard for me because I was always like, I said my dad was, very, very about, this is mine. I'm an owner of everything. I need to hoard
Yeah.
everything. Don't give that much. So it was backwards to everything I learned about, like, oh, give more and you'll receive more, help more people and God will bless you more. The more you sow into people, like even the laws of reaping and sowing, there was a lot of just stuff I had to deprogram of everything I learned from the school system and everything I learned from my parents. And
So what are
those
some of the changes that you started seeing in your business as you started employing that mindset of a kingdom entrepreneur? What were some of the things that you started seeing happening?
Yeah, I started just seeing, like, thinking about serving people without getting paid. I served a lot of leaders without getting paid. I served a lot of just things like other people. Like, how can I help other people achieve what they want? Which I did learn that from the corporate world. It's like consultative sales, like help them get what they want. But I did that in the kingdom world and was just like, all right, I want to help people. I want to help leaders. I want to like learn while you earn. And just by helping people and doing that, God just started blessing me, and I learned a ton. So just by helping people, I would even if they didn't pay me or I got paid super low to help like high level people, I learned a ton while serving them and helping them, because as I helped them, I watched how they did life. I watched how they did parenting. I watched how they did business, and I learned, and I was able to get grace from what they did to be able to be like, I want, like, my parents never were entrepreneurs. My parents didn't teach me about wealth and money. So I had to learn that from other people about wealth, about money, about even like marriage, like all that stuff, parenting, how I would want to parent. Like I had to learn that from other men and other leaders. So just yeah, and I would say too, like planting seeds, like sowing into things, like just knowing that it's like you're not expecting a return. Like we bought land in Africa, and we have been supporting an orphanage, and it's been cool to just like, even like we don't even own our own house out here. Like we're still just like Apostle Paul, like we're living in Airbnbs and we're just like
Yeah.
renting. We've rented, our whole life. And so like, but we bought land and we're like sowing into Africa, and like seeing things like that and seeing the kids out there. And, on my birthday in May 24th, some of the kids, they call me Uncle Eric, and they're like gonna,
Yeah.
just gonna be there on my birthday to, sing happy birthday and stuff. And just seeing that you can impact other nations. Cause that was my heart when my wife and I got married 10 years ago. We said that we're going to go do international ministry. We want to, have a business, or basically we wanted to just do ministry, but I realized I had to do some business because that's how I know how to pay the bills. And so, but our whole goal was to go to the nations and support the nations. So I would say it changed my whole life. And then just following the supernatural path with God, and like even leaving corporate America to see what he's done. So I've done e-commerce since leaving corporate America. I've done affiliate marketing, e-commerce, real estate. And then we got into 2021. I raised $50,000 to do an NFT project. We sold out of $1 million NFT project. And we got all these artists and creatives, from Sony, Disney, and Marvel to be a part of that. That led into us landing John Rhys Davies from Lord of the Rings into our film, which led into now a studio. We're building an equity crowdfunded studio that has people that worked on Star Wars that are co-founding that with us. And so it's like everything's gone glory to glory to glory to basically like not count anything like. And that's the thing is a lot of people would say, oh, well, you did e-commerce, but you didn't make a ton of money and didn't, build the best e-commerce company in the world. But
Right.
those 500 orders I did with Kingdom Dominion, it was called Kingdom Dominion. I launched it in April 4/14 of 2022, or I don't know, it was 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago, 2021. 2021 is when I launched it, Kingdom Dominion. But those 500 orders and doing like 10, 20,000 e-commerce taught me a lot, and it now got me to the next step. So it's like for ADHD people and like misfits, just because you do something that doesn't pay all your bills and now you make 10K a month and now whatever, you can use the skill set you did in e-commerce or whatever to now go in the future and have that knowledge. And with real estate too, like knowing the knowledge of, I know how to find off-market deals. Now we're looking for an off-market deal for ourselves to buy our first house in Orlando,
Right.
using
Right.
off-market. So everything can help each other, and nothing's wasted in the kingdom, which is what I love about being a misfit and just being ADHD and using it to just use. So for instance, in the film and business world, I look at it in such a different way than all the other people that worked at Lucasfilms, the people who worked at Disney, the people who worked on these companies. And so for some reason, they're attracted to work with me because I'm showing how to solve problems in the Christian film industry. And even in
Yeah.
Hollywood, exiting to like a new realm where we can make movies, distribute movies without Hollywood. And we're looking at solving problems in a different way in this industry. And so the people that are wanting to work for a kingdom company, they're like, we want to work with your guys' company because one, you guys are looking at different ways. You're seeing how to finance things. You're seeing how to bring crowds together. You're seeing how to do marketing, business, connecting. Because at the end of the day, me being ADHD, my brain just sees patterns and connections and
Yeah.
pinpoints. So I'm able to connect all the dots where they're just like, I just want to make a Pixar style movie. I want a story
Right.
development. I
Right.
want to think about story and art, and which is great, but they're not thinking about how everything can come together to actually make a whole system for those stories to get funded, to get distributed, to make money. And so there's just you can use ADHD for good in any industry, especially when
Yeah.
you bring the supernatural and like more kingdom thinking of abundance and hearing from heaven and like getting downloads from heaven, dreams. That's where it gets fun, is when you mix it in with everything God has paid for and Jesus has for us. It's like it gets a lot of fun.
So talk to me about because you kind of mentioned a few things about the movie industry and people that have been involved, that you've gotten involved with it. So talk to me about that. What specifically are you doing when it comes to making movies? And that sounds like a natural progression from picking up your mom's camera and saying, "Hey, this records video." And so talk to me about what you're doing in the movie space, and what excites you about it. What are your latest projects in that space, and how did that come about? Like, what was the first step towards making movies? I mean, making movies sounds like such a big, grand, amazing thing. So what were some of those steps that led you into it, and what are you doing now?
Yeah. So when I raised the $50,000 in 2021, I started hiring a team, and the investor who actually gave me 50,000 to partner with me, he was in Hollywood, doing a lot of just extra on set for a lot of different things. I met him in 100X as well, and he also was working. So he had a small little studio in Sacramento. So he went from Hollywood to Sacramento after COVID and was, all into videography and just basically just had a heart for film and all that stuff and really wanted to do that. So he already had more experience in that than I did, right? So that's one key, is that, start working with people who have more experience than you, where I play a position and maybe launching things, building community, connecting all the people. And so from there, we brought in other artists, an artist that worked at Sony. He sold over $1 million of art to Sony. So I positioned that artist. I can't draw that good. Like if you see my draw, it's like stick figures, but I can attract an artist that sold $1 million of art to Sony. So I had that guy. Then I had a developer that worked on like Star Wars Rogue One VR experience and
And how did
amazing.
those connections come about? Like, are those all through 100X, or are those through other things? Like, how did those connections come about for somebody that's like, well, man, yeah, you've come across these amazing people, but I will never have access to those kind of people. How did that access come about?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. The Kingdom networks and the Christian networks are getting pretty cool. The developer guy, he actually was through the NFT network. So once I got in the NFT world, I started before I even launched thought about it, launched an NFT project. I bought 20 projects and I started making money. So I made like $5,000. I bought one for 200. Ended up being a super rare NFT. I sold it for 5 grand. And I did that twice, where I made like 10 grand off these $200 NFTs, where you buy it during the launch and you get lucky and you get a good one. And so I
Right.
did that and I was like, oh, wow, there's like, you can make money in this industry, because at the time there was so much demand, whatever. Anyways, so I met him from that community. So for me, I would say I would always go into industries, and I would find people that I liked in those industries or those networks. And I would find people I like and I would connect with them and talk to them if I felt like attracted, or I felt like they had something that I like. I was like, man, I appreciate that they're really good at this. So this guy in that industry, Monty, became our developer that worked on all these films, and he had another guy that worked on all these big films that he brought on to help us during our launch. Yeah, I just met them from the NFT world, and they were just also just thinking about Web3 and the future of digital ownership and royalties and art, and like because they were these really good developers and artists, and they were working in Australia actually. He was working at these big like futuristic healthcare companies, and but they were bored at their job, you know. So the NFT world, the Web3 world, we would all get on Discord and talk to all these people about creating and changing the world and building our own Disney's, our own Marvel franchises. So we were all
Yeah.
dreaming big together. And so that's how I found them. And then the other guy, the artist, was through another marketing network. It was through a marketing network called Giver Marketing, where we met him and got introduced to him. And so, and even now, like now, the guy that worked at Star Wars, I worked on 3 of the Star Wars, 3 of the Harry Potters, Elysium, Jungle Book. He did Pirates of the Caribbean. He has 2 Academy Awards. He became a co-founder because I hired a chaplain that was also, it was a recruiter for Silicon Valley, but now he's focused on being a Kingdom chaplain. And I gave him 1% of my company, and I said, hey, like, we need prayer in this company, in the studio. We're going after Hollywood. We're going after all this big stuff. We need, at the center, we need prayer and we need kingdom thinking. So can you, here's 1% of the company. Can you be our chaplain and kind of chief people officer was his role. So
Right.
it's all about
Right.
people. And then after, just through supernaturally, we got a co-founder who was a Disney guy and worked for Reinhard Bonnke and worked with NASCAR and Marriott. And he worked at Disney for over like 10 years or something. So he came through supernaturally. And I met him at Oral Roberts University while speaking on Kingdom Warriors. And when we did a 7-figure launch, and I was telling my story. So I met him over there. And then the guy at Lucasfilms, we met him through our chief people officer. Our chief people officer was like, hey, we got this guy. He worked at Lucasfilm. He's in between projects right now. He was working on David, the animated film, and working on, he did Jungle Beat that got sold to Netflix from South Africa. And he's like, you'll like him because my dad's from South Africa. He's like, you'll like him
Yeah.
because he's
Yeah.
South African. And so we just got connected, and I started sharing the vision. So once you get connected to these high level people, you just share the vision. Here's the vision. Here's what we're
Yeah.
doing. Here's what we're struggling with. I don't know how to solve this. Here's what I know we're supposed to do, but here's what I don't know how we do this. And here's what I feel like God's called us to do. And if they feel aligned to it and they want to help build this solution, then, they end up, we'll either get connected and see how they can help in some way.
Yeah, it sounds like along the way, even earlier on, before you got to the bigger folks, is that it was you sharing your vision of what you wanted to do, right? You
Mhm.
started sharing on Discord and having these conversations with folks and sharing what your dreams were, what your visions were, and then
Mhm.
suddenly people started connecting to that or saying, hey, I know somebody else that has a similar vision, you should connect with them. And so
Exactly. Yeah.
I think for somebody there's power in understanding that is sometimes when you have a vision, when you have a dream, when you have a big idea, even if it's a misfit idea and it seems way out there, is sometimes just simply sharing it, you'll be amazed how then suddenly connections start happening. And so it sounds like that started happening with you early on, is you just started sharing this desire to start making movies and start making movies that made a difference. And so those
Mhm.
connections started happening, and then one connection led to another connection, which led to another connection that led to these bigger connections that you wouldn't have imagined early on, but it came about from you just simply sharing your vision and your desire and your dreams and stuff, right?
100%. So yeah, it's all about sharing the vision. And the two is like a lot of people would get scared to say, "Oh, I don't want to share my vision or my dream because somebody will steal it." Right? Somebody's going to steal. But the idea was so big. It was like we're going to create our own Kingdom Disney, our own Marvel.
Yeah,
Anyone can see Marvel or Disney and be like, "Oh, I want to make my own." It's like that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
I'm not scared of someone taking my idea of like we're going to build something big that's going to make epic things. Like we're going to build this epic media franchise. Like anyone can go after that idea, honestly. Like
right,
but
right,
anyways, so I just started sharing it and started saying, here's how we're doing it, here's what God's doing now, here's where we're going. And yeah, not being afraid to just talk to people about where you're going and talking to people about what you need because like you said, I don't know. My experience was making YouTube videos, 10-minute long, 15-minute long YouTube videos, like across the country, like just what I was experiencing with a DSLR camera and a cheap microphone. I didn't know
yeah,
about the fancy microphones and the red cameras, and I never worked on movie sets. I never worked on any of that, but I'm able to look at business and industry and study it like really quickly to where not that I know everything about it, but I can like just watch videos and I can consume content and ask like the people who know questions. And I can almost like that's the thing I think is good about ADHD people is if you're passionate about something, you can learn it really quick. And
yeah,
so like if you're like for instance podcasting and microphones and like if you're passionate about that, you could just start studying YouTube videos. What are the best Shure mics I need? What are the best XLR cables? What
right,
are
right,
what is this? How do you set them up? And you could just start learning it very quick, especially in the day and age we're in now, where people are getting paid in ad dollars just to make the best content, the best tutorials, and so all the information is available to you if you're just open to just learning it. And so I started learning everything I can about storytelling, script writing, cameras, what you need to know as a producer, what you need to know as an executive producer. Because they kept saying, "Oh, well, you're the executive producer, you're the creator of this, executive producer." So I'm like,
sure
what do
I
I need
am.
to
What
know
is
as what do I need
it?
to know as the creator and executive producer? Like, that's
Yeah,
my role, but what does that mean? And so, as I was building my own intellectual property, I had to figure out what is my role. I was like, oh well, what did George Lucas do? Because George Lucas was different because he wrote the script and directed it. Where I was like, oh well, am I supposed to direct it? If I do, I need to learn how to direct, but I didn't
right,
direct
right,
it, so I haven't directed anything. So and then so if I wanted to do that, I probably need to get more skills. So I've been studying that. But the other pieces, the producers who have been helping us make our first thing was also through connections, through people who got attracted to us, connected us to them. They had 3 films with Lionsgate, a couple with Paramount, and one with Universal or whatever. And yeah, I got connected and really liked our story and liked what we're doing. But I think I would say, yeah, getting people around you that know how to do all that stuff.
right,
So like more I'm seeing now, I'm more of if you look at Angel Studios, they're really good at technology and marketing. That's the problem we're really solving now with this network we're building, is where we're building an ecosystem with the best of Christian producers, the people who already make. For instance, we're working with Chuck and Carrie of God's Not Dead, Nefarious, Unplanned. So they really good. They're really good at $1 to $10 million movies. If you give
yeah,
them a good story and $1 to $10 million for a story and a script and a movie, they will make a really good movie and they know how to distribute it and launch it to make money, to at least double
yeah,
their money or more. So
yeah,
so like we're partnering with them on like, hey, we're going to do some movies with you guys. All right, now we have, so they've done 250 million in the box office. So now I'm partnering with them and I'm adding value to them, and now they're wanting to work with us. So I would say those are things you can do. If I know they know how to make the movies and launch the movies, but I know how to maybe bring finances and bring they need to start building an audience and a following. And they want to build a platform, so we're going to help them with that. So there's as we're building this ecosystem out, it's really seeing what can you help with. And this is for anyone listening in your industry. Find out what you're really good at, what your
right,
superpower is, and bring that to the industry to where you can go and look at the industry. And for me, it's bringing everyone to work together. Like I'm able to bring all these different people to work together and say, what if we thought bigger? So now we're building it on our own, where we're like bringing in team, bringing in people. But now we're saying we don't have to all just own each other, but what if we all just work together and built an ecosystem to where we all can, from distribution to story to development to scripting to marketing, distribution, all the different things. What if we all work together? So I've been finding the best people in each of the like 9 pieces of Christian film development, and kind of having a network of those top people, the top people who do it. So I don't have to do it because I don't want to learn all those roles.
Right.
I don't have the time to do
Right.
that. But I
Right.
know the 9 people who are the best at that in this 1 to 10, $1 to $20 million film range. And so now our job right now is we're building an ecosystem that is going to help bring all those people together so we can make better films, better stories, how to get these even good stories that don't get financing, how to get them financed, how to get a crowd around them. So that's some of the things we're in development right now. And we're actually in the friends and family side on WeFunder. So in the future, you'll see our WeFunder out where we're basically letting the fans now come in and be a part of this studio and ecosystem.
So what kind of movies are you wanting to make? Because there's so many different categories, and so many different types of movies. Are you wanting to jump into all of them? Is there a specific kind that excites you most?
Yeah.
Where are you at with your interest for the future?
So our first intellectual property through Kingdom Warriors is called Legends of Eladria, and it's basically this good versus evil. I call it, Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings meets Dune. So it's like that's what our intellectual property is. It's a mix of like those 3 and like the Matrix as well.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a mix of those, and it's a trilogy. So we want to do a $50 million budget plus for each of those films. So right now we're in development. So we put about $500,000 into it, but we've gotten advice now that they see the vision of, hey, we want to do this as a trilogy. We did it with some producers that have made those kind of like $500,000 to $1.5 million films, but they've never made a fantasy film. So it's decent, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough to where now that our team that has worked in Star Wars and stuff is happy enough to try to release it and try to just like make our money back on that. So really what we're doing now is we're repackaging, redeveloping that, all like the little bit under $500,000 we put into the intellectual property, and we're positioning that and packaging that to get basically to get more of the financing for a $50 million to do it really well. So it's almost like most people in the industry, they only have a script and maybe like some AI pictures on a pitch deck. Whereas we have $500,000 of film, of shooting, of trailers, of concept art, of decks. So now we're kind of repackaging that to do a bigger thing. So that's one.
Well, you're definitely not starting small when you talk Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia,
exactly.
Matrix,
that's what we
Dune.
don't. We don't want to do it cheap, because Dune just did $150 million budget to do Dune 2, which was you've seen it. It was amazing. It was like it was literally cinema gold, and it's like Dennis did such a great job, and just all the actors. And when I see that, I'm like, I don't want to do just a $1 million fantasy. Like I got to do it good. So now we're taking everything we did, and like I said, nothing is wasted. So we put $500,000 into the concept, so it's not wasted, but it's going to give now people hey, we did this for super cheap, low budget. But imagine if we had 50 million. Imagine if we had 70 million, and we know how to shoot in South Africa, where we could triple the budget in South Africa. So we're even building film connections and studios in South Africa, where the US dollar compared to the rand, we can 4x our production budget. So 25 million, we could do $100 million budget film. So it's like there's just a lot of cool things God's teaching us. But I would say there's that. That's the big one. That's like the next 10 years of my life, bringing that to life, this trilogy, and making sure we do it well. So that's that. And then we have a smaller budget TV series. So we have a card game and TV series that's going to be more of the animation we're going to do. Sorry, my 2-year-old is like knocking on my door right now, trying to.
Yeah, that's okay.
So the animation, we have a TV series, we have a card game. So if you think about with that one, you could think about Pokemon and like Yu-Gi-Oh. So it's going to be a TV series and a card game launched together. And the card game is already developed. It's already an amazing card game. It's being tested.
Is that in the fantasy space as well, or is that in a different category?
Yeah, fantasy trading card space, kind of like very Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, but we call it like Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering without all the witchcraft and without all the evil stuff. So it's still cool fantasy for youth, but it's not going to have all the demonic stuff.
So is that what you lean to, and that's going to be the goal of what you're doing, is high budget fantasy stuff, or is there other kinds of stories that you're
Yeah,
wanting to
that's a
do?
good point. So there's documentaries. We have one documentary on our slate that's called Wealth with Purpose, and it's like the biblical version of The Secret. So
Okay.
think of The Secret and like Tony Robbins style, like all these manifestation type people. But we're going to follow the story of Chick-fil-A, how it got founded and
Oh,
stewarded,
wow.
the story of Hobby Lobby, the story of Annie Ann's, the story of even the Hot Cheetos. Hot Cheetos was invented by Richard Montanez and Hot Cheetos. The story of even like our Kingdom Warriors story, other cool stories we're gonna share where they got a God idea and they stewarded it well and they launched it and it impacted people. So we're gonna
That's
basically
amazing.
give credit to that. So we have documentaries. We have a Johnny Cash family and the hip hop connections, Johnny Cash thing, and why he had a heart for prison reform and
Yeah,
prisons.
yeah,
So we're going to do that whole thing, and we're talking to some people in his family to do that. So we're gonna do a number of things, and I think even Christian films. We're gonna do some overtly Christian films. Think of God's
yeah.
Not Dead. So we're working with
Right.
Chuck and Carrie on some different things, and so we're gonna do some Christian films with them. But I think what we want to do is we want to definitely tell films that matter and that are going to create impact and that like are just stories that are really cool. Like they're like, man, why has nobody done this?
Right,
The
right.
stories are like, why, like this has to be done. Like nobody's done this. This is crazy. We should have done this already.
Yeah.
And we want to bring this to life.
So Christian movies have traditionally got a bad reputation. People haven't been a fan of them. People have said, they're terribly made, or they're overly preachy, or they're they seem second rate. What are some movies that for you have stood out that you feel are well done? These are movies that people have really elevated the game in the space. Because I feel there are some that have done that. What are some that stand out to you?
Yeah, I just saw the movie by Kingdom Story Company, Unsung Heroes. I thought they did a
Yeah,
really good job. So Unsung Heroes, even the Unsung Heroes, Jesus Revolution,
yeah,
that was awesome, and just seeing Lonnie Frisbee and seeing the story, and like he was a misfit, he was like
right,
this
right.
hippie dude, and like just had so much impact, and all these people saved, and teach people about Holy Spirit, and just like living in the spirit of love, and just like loving people, even though they don't look like you, or they don't look like they're different than you, and so that was really impactful. I think, yeah, Dune 2 actually, even though it's not a Christian film, Dune 2 is this. It was like I say we need to learn a lot more from what they did in Dune 2. Like it was
Yeah,
just so powerful, the storytelling, just the cinematography, and so I think we gotta think like that level. And then of course Star Wars, a lot of it was Christian. It was like Christian. It was like Christian thinking, even though obviously they're putting like biblical stuff in it. But
yeah,
Anakin, for instance, was his mom. Didn't have a father. There was no dad. So
yeah,
they took that story. Of course, Anakin was like not like Jesus because he turned into Darth Vader,
yeah.
um, but it's like there was a lot of those stories. Of course, Lord of the Rings, Chronicles, Narnia. I got to meet Cary Grant. Cary Grant started with $100 million with Phil Anschutz, a Jewish billionaire, and he started the company Walden Media. So they made Holes, they made
Hmm.
Journey to the Center of the Earth, they made Chronicles Narnia, all of them, Prince of Caspian. Some of the later Chronicles, or not Chronicles Narnia. Well, yeah, Chronicles Narnia. Yeah, some of the later Chronicles Narnia stopped making money or didn't do as well, but yeah, I mean, the Chronicles of Narnia, definitely the Aslan, the way they showed Aslan and like seeing
Right,
like the
right.
father and like his heart was always just really fascinating. Even Lion King, Lion King, when Simba almost got him and his cousin Nala killed or whatever, and then he was like the father was so like sad and like disappointed he his son was leading them astray into this darkness and could have got killed or was about to get killed, and
Yeah,
after instead of disciplining them, they take him up this hill, and he basically just loves on his son and just shows him like, look, I love you, I don't want you to die, and like I like and basically um just like loved on his son. And so I used to always cry during that scene because I always wanted a father like that. So
Yeah.
Lion King was just like always, and then I'm, being from South Africa, always like love lions in Africa, and um, that was always impactful. So I always wanted to do animations like that showed the father through animation and through even whether it's an animal or whatever that showed the father's heart. And so
Right.
that's movies like Wally. Wally was always big to show like consumerism and just to
Right.
show like American consumerism and like we consume too much, so we're not even thinking about veterans or homeless, or we're not thinking about the people and the poor people, and we're just all just shopping so much. And it's like I've always wanted to make movies like that, animations, to just expose, like how are we all falling as sheep for this system of just like, we're just so distracted, we're so unfocused on what God has for us, that we're just sitting here like becoming fat and lazy. And like, so I think I've always loved stuff like that, even though
Yeah.
they're not even
Yeah.
overtly Christian films. They don't have to preach Bible verses, but they're telling us reality and things that we need to watch out for. I Am Legend was one of my favorite movies with Will Smith. They're making a new one. Even some of the Guardians of the Galaxy, like Chris Pratt and some of those, and like him having to like be like this guy and his orphan thinking and the things he learned from the hardship and trauma of his parents and his whole origin story and what Chris Pratt had to do, and like always inspired me. And like I used to always just love that character as a kid with Marvel. I used to always have all these Marvel comics and stuff. And so I
So
think just
with
go on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so like even The Matrix was my favorite trilogy, one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Neo, they had stories like Neo, the One, which of course is very biblical. Trinity, Nebuchadnezzar. They had Zion. Zion's the home.
Right. Right.
My oldest daughter's name is Zion, with the
Oh
Zion with
wow.
the A. So like it all connects, movies stuff, and so I think there's amazing ways to speak to power, but also speak to people straight to the hearts through movies. And that's why I'm working at mobilizing the best of the industry, where I don't have to be, oh, I'm the best filmmaker, because I'm not. But what I can do is I can
Right.
see the vision for film, and I have a heart for film and the industry, so I could bring everyone together and help bring a system of bringing financing so they can make creators, the best creators, and hopefully I'll play a small piece in it on getting movies
Yeah.
done.
So if budget wasn't a problem, what would be the movie that you'd make?
The Matrix trilogy. So like my own version of the Matrix trilogy, Lord
Yeah.
of the Rings style movies. Like I'll make my own Lord of the Rings style trilogy, my own, like the way my brain sees it with the best creatives. I bring the best writers, creatives, people who also love that vision, and I just keep making my own Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia style trilogy, and then I'd make my own Matrix, like us versus AI type trilogy that speaks real good story and like
Yeah.
good, just shows you who you are in the spirit, and like how you're born for more, and we're not just meant to live here, pay our bills, pay our taxes, and die, and like that's not just what we're here for. And just to awaken people, I'd make films that would just awaken people to their purpose, to their potential, and to show them that you know pretty much we were fed a lie our whole life, and that we have to break free from the lie we were fed.
Right. So if you could speak to the younger Eric from years ago, what would you tell him?
Yeah, I would just wake him up a lot quicker and say like the time is now. Start dreaming big, start doing everything you set your mind to. Believe in yourself. There's no limits. There's only the devil can only the only power the devil has is the power of agreement you give him. Like you're loved, that God has, he has you, and he has great plans for you, but we also have to wake up to the fact that he's given us a level of dominion that it's up to us to really start getting a lot of this done. And yeah, he'll bring in the people, he'll bring in the angels to protect you, he'll bring in all the things you need to live in life and godliness, but you have to actually make decisions, you have to actually move, you have to go, you have to make your dreams happen, and you have to actually go for it, and don't be afraid.
That's amazing. And so for somebody that is is a Christian and they're interested in movie making and cinema and all the things that you've talked about today, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you and become a part of your world?
Yeah, you can just Eric Skeldon on all social medias, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. just DM me, movies. DM me, I want to get involved with movies and Christian media, and yeah, I'll get back to you. We have a free. There's 4,000 people. It's called Kingdom Warriors Global Community. It's kind of our global community. We have in our guides. We have just tons of resources to. We've had dozens of businesses launched through our free community. We've had a couple get married from South Africa and Indiana through our community. We just had our
Wow.
first marriage. We've had, tons of people get jobs through our community. So it's just the Kingdom networks where people, thinking about creativity, but also business and how to be sustainable so we can go after our passions and stuff, but also have the same sustainability because sometimes your passions don't start paying off right away.
Right. Well, and you also have a book, Kingdom Mind, on Amazon. So be sure if you want to learn more about Eric and what he's about, check out the book Kingdom Mind on Amazon as well. Eric, thank you so much for being on today, man. It's been great hearing your story.
Come on, Paul. I'm glad I'm on, and yeah, I forgive me for in the past we've been talking about movies and stuff, and I haven't been able to show. I know you've been wanting to watch our movie, but I haven't. We haven't. We don't. We only have right now John Reese Davies like a minute and 20 where he's kind of sharing the story, but
Yeah.
we're gonna have a lot more to show soon. Now that Scott is coming on from Star Wars, and he's gonna redo our trailer and stuff, so we could re-show it and like. So I'm excited once he polishes up, so we could release more of what we have, but we're thinking a lot bigger now.
Yeah.
Before we were just thinking low budget, let's just make something, but now we're thinking a lot bigger, and yeah, we'll see what happens. It's gonna be
Well,
cool.
I'm excited for you, man. I think it's awesome. And keep going, man. Keep going.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye bye.